It's time for a Shui Media podcast.
Disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in the show do not necessarily reflect those of Shui Media or any subsidiaries. The program may contain strong language not suitable for young audiences. Series discussions will contain spoilers. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy the show!
Hello and welcome to Dubterfuge. It's our spooky, scary Halloween episode. I'm Matt.
The spoopiest.
And we got a great assortment of shows for you today, all two of them. First one we're covering is a very popular and now out of print show called Shiki. This aired in the summer and fall of 2010. And it's about zombie vampires, to put it plainly.
Well, okay. Oh, by the way, hi, I'm Luna, and I also run this show. The term Shiki, translates to, basically corpse demon. 'Cause in Japanese culture, they don't really have what we would consider like a typical vampire. They kind of have their own sort of terminology surrounding it.
They also used the term Okiagari.
Yeah.
At least in the beginning, and then they later on switched to
another
Shiki.
term. Yeah, and then there's another term called Jinro, which is like a special type of Shiki, but more on that later.
It's a daywalker for vampirologists in the audience.
Yeah, basically.
For the longest time, for whatever reason, I thought it meant werewolf, Jinro.
No.
Well, this show was just an emotional doozy, at least for the second half. My biggest complaint would be that it drags, but I still enjoyed it.
So the caveat with this show is the pacing, especially in the beginning, is like slow. Like basically to the point where it takes the audience like maybe like 5 minutes to figure out what's going on, and it takes the characters like forever.
Yes.
To the point where you kind of want to jump into the jump into the show and be like, "Oh my god, it's vampires."
Yes.
Okay. And resume scene.
Yeah. They were very slow to arrive at their conclusions in regard to, are we sure it's vampires? And then at like 15 episodes later, it's like, yeah, we're sure it's vampires now. That we just saw the guy get bit, so we're sure it's vampires.
I mean, like, I get initially if you're somewhat suspicious of that, because, I mean, you know, that's typically something of folklore. You would not expect that. So I understand. But on the other hand, okay, so someone has 2 bite marks on their neck of all places.
It must be mosquito mating season. That must be why, because that's why there's 2 bite marks. Mosquito mating season.
Actually, the 2 bite marks would actually, especially if they're close enough to each other, would actually not indicate mosquitoes. Mosquitoes only leave 1 puncture mark. If you saw 2 together, actually the first inclination would probably be spiders.
Or snake.
Because they have 2 fangs.
Or snakes.
Depending on the size.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, it's like they just jump to all these like ridiculous conclusions before the actual conclusion, which is vampires.
Yeah, and I don't blame them for that. I mean, the main character is a doctor, so he's trained to think that way. So I'm not faulting Dr. Ozaki at all for his method of thought, because when someone in the real world dies, no one instantly thinks, "Oh crap, we got vampires. We got to do something." It's like, no, he had a stroke. That's why he died.
Although having studied anatomy a little bit, it was interesting hearing all the medical terminology. Now, again, I don't know how they practice medicine in Japan. For the most part, human bodies are human bodies. That does not change. However, so like on like a basic level, that does not change. But I'm not sure how hospitals in Japan are run. I'm not sure what terminology they use, if they use the same terminology. So that part, I can't quite comment on, but it was still interesting hearing it.
Yeah. Well, really what I liked about this show especially was the other themes at play, like not just science having its place, but just the other themes that you see at work here. Like, okay, let me ask you this. At the end, who did you feel for more? The humans or the vampires?
Okay, so here's the thing with this show. So in most shows, I at least try to find like some group of characters that I can, root for and get attached to and so forth. There are very, very few likable characters in this show. Like, for example, like the main character, one of the main characters, Natsuno, is a complete tosser.
Yeah,
like, he's moody, he's rude to everyone, he's just a sulky little angsty shithead.
Angsty teen asshole, basically, like the kind who would join a grunge band if he had the chance.
No, he's way too hipster for grunge. He's like the type that would go to a shoegaze concert and pretend not to have any fun.
Oh, wow.
Then you have Megami, who's like this pink-haired sort of fashionista type girl. Her outfits are fucking rad, by the way.
Oh,
the fashion in this show is amazing.
Vampires have great fashion sense. Who'd have thunk?
But more on that later. Then you have Megami, who's like a total spoiled brat and just whines and complains about everything, and she's like obsessed with Natsuno to the point of like stalking him. So like that's creepy. And then you just have like a whole other slew of characters who are just like, oh my god, like Masao. Do not get me started on Masao. Props to Todd Haberkorn though for giving it 110%, but like, yeah, man, that character is completely insufferable.
Yeah,
and he's like literally the worst.
And a creep you love to hate, really, because I did not feel anything for him. Like, he's pissed off that he has a loving sister-in-law. That's basically how we first see his character. Like, stupid sister-in-law. And then she's just like the nicest person. Like, you might want to. You could argue that she was putting on a front, but she was still just being perfectly nice to her younger brother-in-law. Like, what is your problem?
She was totally putting on a front, but see, his problem is that his family just doesn't know how to raise kids. Like, they raise him and like spoil the crap out of him, and then his nephew is born, and then they spoil the crap out of him, and then he just gets jealous. And he hates Natsuno for some reason. I mean, I kind of don't blame him because Natsuno is kind of a jerk, but it's just fucking ridiculous. Anyway, I guess if I had to pick like one character I could kind of get behind, like probably the Doctor, Ozaki, who's voiced by David Wald.
Yeah.
Although there are some things he does that we'll talk about in a second that are like, I think completely borderline, like you probably have like your license revoked.
Oh, I
in
know.
any
Oh,
other
that'll be a fun thing to
situation.
talk about. I know which part you mean.
Yeah, like it's pretty reprehensible, you know, just, but it is an interesting kind of portrayal, and like basically the lengths people will go to out of desperation.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm gonna have to side with Kanami, who towards the end just kind of gets the fuck out of there, which is
Yeah.
probably what I would have done. I'd
Yeah.
just been like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. Bye.
Yeah. Really, I just mostly not really sided, but related with Cowrie, played by Alexis Tipton, because I can just relate to some life stuff I've gone through, because she knew that she was in a shit situation. It was a run, hide or die kind of thing with her, and even though people would probably be like, why didn't she fight? She got through it, which, honestly, from some personal experiences, I can definitely commend her for. Like, good on you, Kaori. She made it through, which for her character, the happy-go-lucky kind is. They're usually the first to die in the horror movie, so I'm just proud that she got through it.
I would say like the Tanaka siblings are probably like the second least reprehensible people in the show. I think if I had to pick like the character I absolutely hate the most besides Masao, maybe the monk, Seishun Moroi.
Why him?
But well, maybe we'll get to it in a second. But sneaky little. He is a sneaky fucker. That's all I'll say for now.
Agreed. Okay, so what other characters beside the doc did you like? Even if it was just like loved them because they're trash.
Oh, I love all the Shiki, like okay, so the main Shiki family are the Kirishiki family.
That's not a red flag.
They move into like this ridiculous like European style castle, which is, I mean, like, hello. And the dad, quote unquote, is Seichiro, who is voiced by J. Michael Tatum, and in the Japanese he's voiced by Gact. If you don't know who Gact is, Google him because he's amazing. And they both play that role about as flamboyant as you'd imagine that character needs to be.
Yeah.
Then you have Shizuru, voiced by Lydia Mackey. She's like the quote-unquote mother, so to speak. And then you have Sunako, who's voiced by Jeremy Lee, and she scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, if you want to know what Sunako's like, think of that movie where you see the two little sisters, like at the end of the hall, like holding hands.
The Shining.
The Shining. La 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 la. Okay, now take out one sister and make the remaining sister a vampire who's been around for centuries. And that's Sunako. Everything she said just put me on edge. She could have just like said, "Would you like some tea?" And all I could think was, this girl is going to murder someone, either me or someone else, but someone is going to die in her presence.
It's like you'd like find her at the edge of your bed just being like, "Hello, remember me?" Like, yeah. Creepy little kid, not to be trusted. whatsoever. But man, those performances are top notch for sure.
Yep.
Which brings me to the character designs for this show are incredible. If you are a hairdresser,
Have we
you
got
know,
a show for you?
content warning. Content warning, if you're a hairdresser, you might have a heart attack.
Yes.
Also, if you're a stylist,
If you work with hair of any kind, even if you're a pet groomer, just strap in and maybe make sure you take your heart meds, because this show will make you question your sanity if you're working hair.
it's like, it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, it's some of these things just kind of defy physics.
Yes. Like the doctor's mom's hair. She should be having. It sort of looks like the best way I can think to describe it is, like in a lava lamp kind of thing, where one of the balls of wax hits the other one. It sort of makes it curve, like that,
Yeah.
but with hair. Like there should be like she should be listing to the right constantly, but isn't.
I
That's
think
the
my favorite is probably Cowdy, because she has these like, so she has these like pigtails, but for some reason the ends of the pigtails form these like star shapes,
yeah.
and I have absolutely no idea how the hell this is physically possible.
Lots and lots
But-
of product, just gel
my
galore,
God.
styling
Like-
gel galore.
The amount, I don't even want to know what her morning routine is, but there is a scene where like you see her get out of bed and her hair is down, and then it's like immediately like the next scene her hair is done up in her usual style, and I'm like, huh,
Magic.
okay then. And it's also kind of weird because like some of like the main characters have these like really, like the principal cast have these really wacky character designs, and then you have like these sort of like background characters who are animated like completely normal,
Mm-hmm.
especially like some of the characters like parents and stuff, and then yet their kids come out with like completely like these wacky hairstyles, or they'll come out like relatively normal looking. It's just like, okay then.
It is the easiest game of spot the main character you will ever play. Like weird hair or weird looking eyes, and boom, done. Go home. You won. You go home. You won the spot the main character thing. Like the green haired nurse. I think her name was Ritsuko, that Colleen Clinkenbeard played.
Yeah.
And yeah, she had hair that said I'm going to be important later on, and she sort of was.
It's like these two sort of jagged, actually no, it's two pairs of jagged like green. Okay, so her hair is like bright ass green, and it's sort of like basically it's like formed into like these weird sort of like pairs of like jagged pigtails kind of, but not really, and then they form like into one collective like ponytail at the very bottom of her waist, because her hair is really really long.
Imagine asking imagine asking a
and that is her
4-year-old
hair.
to draw braids, and that is her hairstyle.
Like I said, the hairstyles in this show just defy all logic, and it's fantastic.
Yes. And speaking of style, let's talk about
Tatsumi's like Red Elvis,
yes.
because that is like my favorite thing in the entire world.
Dude had some seriously weird taste in onesies. Like they would
Oh man, that Red Elvis jumpsuit is amazing.
yeah. And also
And he had matching glasses. He had
yeah.
fucking matching glasses.
And
It was great.
please, for the love of all that is fashion, can we talk about Chizuru? My God, Who is her
So
designer?
so
Because I need them to design all of my clothes from now on.
um so Shizuru wears these. Okay, so I think my favorite outfit is this yellow, like, okay, it literally looks like someone just took a bunch of like yellow masking tape and like sort of formed it around her body into the shape of what somewhat resembles an outfit. Um, I think I was listening to the DVD commentary, and they referred to it as like her chrysalis outfit. But that outfit's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has some crazy outfits. It's kind of amazing. And then of course, um, Seishiro has, I think, I have to wonder if him and Tatsumi like actually just share jumpsuits,
Possibly.
because they have like pretty much like an equal amount of crazy looking jumpsuits. Although I think Seishiro wears probably more jumpsuits than Tatsumi does.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, Chizuru is really the one whose fashion sense is just the loudest thing you will ever hear, or I'm sorry, the loudest thing you will ever see in maybe any show ever.
I mean, granted, I'm sure there are other anime out there that have pretty wacky designs, but um yeah. This like, actually, you know what? You know what it reminds me of? It's like, think of like something, it's like something like Lady Gaga would totally wear.
Yes, yes, but a bit
Like
more
in
form
fact,
fitting.
in fact, like if anyone could cosplay Shizuru, it would probably be Lady Gaga, and it would be amazing.
And the one thing that just amazes me is these are some of the strangest outfits ever, and yet she is rocking them. Like she is owning the outfits. Like she is wearing them, they are not wearing her. They work to her perfectly. Like considering how like out there and abstract they look, I don't. I'm amazed that anyone could pull them off, and yet here she is doing it multiple times.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you're a vampire, you know, you have to just crank up everything to 11.
You have to be hot by default to be a vampire, at least in this show.
Let's see.
This show did well. This show was, we joke, but this show definitely had some really terrifying moments and a lot.
Oh yeah, I would say this is probably one of the most terrifying shows I've ever seen. Like, not just because of like, ooh, vampires, spooky. Like, I don't actually really find that stuff scary. To me, that stuff is just kind of like really cool. Because like, I love vampires. They basically, if I had to make the list, it would be like vampires, then zombies, then everything else. And it's so hard to find a decent vampire story, and I'm so glad that Shiki manages to be like one of the few really good vampire anime.
Very it. Excuse me. It is. It really they're so good that at a point it makes you question who the bad guys actually are.
Yeah.
Like yes, you feel like don't want the humans to get like killed and turned into vampires, but at the same time you feel for the vampires because you see just the worst side of humanity, which is a total lack thereof. Like during the killing, people, the ones doing the killing were happy and excited, and this isn't just nothing ever happens in this town, let's have something to do excited. This is like, I hate that guy, let's kill him excited, which just talking about it even now makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, what really terrifies me about the show is like, and also what I really like about the show is it's not really black or white. Like, it's not like good guys versus bad guys. It's like, no, you have people doing good things for bad reasons, bad things for good reasons, and all sorts of stuff in between. Like there's not really a clear like line. Like no one's really meant to be a good or bad person, or like what I want to say. There's really no clear like villain or hero or anything, especially since most of the characters in the show are like completely reprehensible.
Yeah, I have a quote from the Doctor, and it basically encompasses exactly what they were doing, and is empty your hearts. To kill these demons, we have to become demons, which is exactly what they do.
Pretty much. This kind of reminds me of, so to have like a point of reference. It's like, okay, so there's this really, really, really good British show called Broadchurch. I believe it's on Netflix. It stars David Tennant. And it's basically like a murder mystery. He plays like, well, he plays a detective, but it's like, well, basically whatever the British equivalent of the FBI is.
MI,
one of those.
MI6, MI5.
And so, but basically he is a senior inspector. No, I think MI6 are like the CIA.
It's one of the MIs.
Might be MI5. Anyway, the point is he's like a top inspector. And they bring him out to this really small town called Broadchurch, which is like this, really sleepy, kind of cozy town by the seaside, where there has been a murder of this little boy. And it's kind of similar to Shiki in the sense that like what seems like this, charming, like wholesome little town, everyone seems to know each other and take care of each other and so forth. And then as the police start trying to figure out like what happened, essentially, like as they start trying to get down to the bottom of this murder, they very quickly realize that people are actually like starting to kind of turn on each other, in a sense, and that maybe like the people in this town are not quite as hospitable as they seem. So it kind of reminded me of that, how like slowly people just kind of start turning on each other to kind of save themselves, so to speak.
That's exactly what they did here. They just
lost minus the vampires, obviously.
They lost all their humanity. But the difference with that show and Broadchurch and Shiki is that they had a reason to fear for their lives in Shiki, which is what helped push them to where they ultimately became just these heartless murderers, really, because they're killing people they've known their entire lives, and they don't even, and without a hint of regret, no like, I'm sorry, you were my best friend, but I can't, I have to, blah, or anything like that, and just total, just no love or sympathy or anything, just completely devoid of any emotion besides survival instinct, which is,
give or take a few characters.
Yeah, a few of them like were able to give pause and say, "You realize what we're doing, right?" And then the leader, who's always the craziest one, said, "Yeah, and you realize why we have to do it, right?"
Like, I would say like Ritsuko definitely refuses to kill anybody, which probably is what leads to her undoing, so to speak.
One of the few sane people in the show.
And I know like Toru, he does have good intentions, but he kind of becomes one of those people that tries to do good things but for bad reasons. possibly like selfish reasons. And then Natsuno just does not give a fuck.
Yeah, he was really like the dark horse. Like he wanted everyone to die, not just humans, but the Shiki too. And so yeah, I sort of related to his I hate everyone thing, and he was basically just from the Shiki, he was like the anti-hero because he was killing it because he was basically trying to stop them. Not stop them, but not help them either.
Basically kind of more of like an anarchistic approach to the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Motoko to an extent. Oh god, we'll get to her.
Yeah, but first we have to ask each other this. What scene creeped you out the most? Like what scene just made you just like sit back as you watched it and just say, holy fuck, what are these people?
Actually there are two. One is when Dr. Ozaki is forced to do this, or not really forced, but he basically rationalizes that he needs to do an autopsy on his own wife.
Oh god, yes.
And she is completely conscious of this the entire time. And it's probably one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. It's fucking awful.
His wife, who is played by Jamie Marchi, has told me...
And on top of that, he films the entire thing.
And he wants to show it to people, too. He's like, I got the films if you want to see them. No! What is wrong with you? But let me...
He even freaks out the monk.
Yeah.
We'll get to him in a minute.
About that scene, though, the wife is played by Jamie Marchi, and on two separate occasions, she has told me
Kyoko is her name.
That Kyoko, and on two separate occasions, Jamie has told me that is the most disturbing thing she has ever recorded. And I completely understand because I had to stop and look over it and leave the room and tell someone I loved them and get a drink of water before I could return to watching the rest of that.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
And it's just like, dude, there was no reason for him to do that. She wasn't gonna kill anybody.
No, but he had to learn somehow.
I mean, at least do it on someone that probably deserves it, like Masao.
Yeah. Capture someone who actually did something. Capture Megami. Do that on her.
No, because that's still kind of disturbing. And then the other one is, well, I guess I could talk about it. So there are two OVA episodes. Well, technically, I guess they're not really OVA anymore, since they are actually included on the Blu-rays in their original chronological order. But for whatever reason, they were excluded from the original airing of the series, probably due to the fact that these particular episodes are really graphic. And they're probably the darkest episodes.
Very. But
in my opinion, they're also the best. And those are episodes 20 and 21.5-ish. Basically
that's
taking
20 and
place...
a half and 21 and a half.
Basically kind of taking either... kind of taking place either before or somewhere in between the events of those two episodes. And so in one particular episode, I believe it's the 21st episode, so there's this character named... It basically rewinds to events that anyway, the point is, so it features Motoko, who has these two little kids, and I'm trying to describe this without freaking anybody out, but unfortunately, both of her kids succumb to the Shiki. Well, first it's her father-in-law, so the grandfather, then basically just kind of like one by one, the family just kind of starts dropping like flies. And then it gets to the point where like she becomes so distraught that she is in complete denial of the fact that her son has become ill. And she's like running around town desperately trying to like find someone to save him. And essentially just sort of descends into madness. When I think it's Akira that finds her. I can't remember, but basically it's discovered that she has like locked herself in her house, and it's all like boarded up, and then you realize that she's been holding the remains of her son.
By remains, we mean rotting corpse.
Well, I was going to say remains to spare anyone of potential grossness, but thank you, Matt.
It's what I do.
Anyway, yes. And that is pretty. And like the animation gets pretty detailed and close up, and it's gross.
Yeah. And it also turns out that she was like sidelined, like if you're watching from the sidelines for most of it. And she was one of the few people to die who didn't become a Shiki. Like, she just died, like, she looked like a zombie because she was so, like, weak and malnourished. But then she just eventually... She set Yamairi, one of the regions in the town, on fire, and to put it in the sense of a cremation, committed her body to the flame, and just
she
up.
Basically like tears off her clothes, yells "I win," and then just burns the motherfucker down
and throws herself on the pyre with it.
And that's pretty much when Kanami just decides to get the fuck out of there. I do not blame her.
I do not either. I don't blame anyone who decided to say, fuck this, I'm out, and leave. I would have done the same. Like, after 2 people died, I'd probably be like, you know what? Something's going on. I'm gonna chill with my relatives in Cabo for a week and not deal with this. But yeah. For me, the one scene that made my skin crawl was after they realized that they had to kill them and started doing so. Back when they sort of got like a system going with it, like it's when the Shiki are hiding in the sewer and trying to get away, and then they just hear all the women who are responsible for body disposal going, 3 blind mice. 3 blind mice. See how they run. See how they run. They ran away from the farmer's wife who cut their tails with the carving knife. Have you ever seen such a sight in your life as 3 blind mice? And that just terrified the crap out of me. Like,
I don't know. Is it as terrifying as what you just sang, or I'm just kidding?
Wow, really? We're going there? Okay. Anyway, my beautiful singing aside, because they're putting away the corpses of people that...
Voice aside.
They're putting away the corpses of people they've known just about their entire lives, and they're acting like it's any old neighborhood trash cleanup day. Like, the one thing, as a sociologist, the one thing that shocked me the most was how quickly, like, all the stuff they had to do became normalized and acceptable and without any hesitation. It's like, we gotta kill them, and no one said, but wait, shouldn't we? No, we gotta kill them. Like, okay. No one hesitated. They're like, okay, let's kill them. And like, after a few of them, it just became so rampantly normalized that no one thought twice about it. And that is really just what fucked me up the most. My God.
Well, also, like, they're still kind of under the influence of the Kirishiki,
Yeah,
because pretty much whatever they say goes.
true.
But yes, it is really fucking disturbing. Yeah. Oh, also, fun bit of trivia. So the author of Shiki is actually married to the author of Another. Just kind of sweet.
And the author is also the one who wrote Macross 7. So yeah, Fuyumi Ono got some creative range. Oh, and we didn't mention anything about this earlier, but it was made by Studio, I want to say Dome, Daume, D-A-U-M-E.
Yeah.
Who
Daume.
were also behind Please Teacher, Please Twins, and Mina Mike. So yeah, that studio also has a wide variety on its plate.
Yeah, all of which have absolutely nothing to do with vampires.
And if you want something like much happier and fun and less terrifying, I'd recommend Please Teacher and Please Twins.
On that note, we're gonna take a really quick break, and when we come back, the little dub that could.
Hey everyone, this is Tim from Shui Media, and I am here to tell you about our 2018-2019 roster of shows. As usual, Brews and the Boys is back again with Michael Sizemore and Tom Ryle, giving you an in-depth discussion every single week about America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. And speaking of America, the most American show in America, America, the podcast, is back again for Season 3 with host Thebadias A. Stard, the embodiment of and only hope for America, here to make sense of America every 2 weeks by yelling his important words directly into your ear holes. Next up, the Schwegcast is back again with more discussions in songwriting and the music industry with the schweeziest of the schweezy, Sam Schwegler. And now, on to our new Schway shows. This fall, we have Dubterfuge with Pod Team Epic, hosted by Stella Luna and Matt Voss, two passionate weebs talking about their favorite animes and everything new in the world of dubs. Then, in 2019, we have Space Adventure, hosted by a guy who goes by Luke. You see, Luke came to us a few months back claiming that he had found a flight recorder of sorts containing several years' worth of audio. But the thing is, he claims that audio is of a crew of a spaceship from 500 years in the future. Now, we can't confirm the authenticity of these recordings, which is why we need your help. So, when winter 2019 rolls around, be sure to check out the premiere of Space Adventure. We want to thank each and every one of you who tune in every single week and make Shui Media happen. If you haven't already, maybe subscribe and leave us a review in iTunes because it goes a long way in helping our placement. And don't forget to visit shwaymedia.com, that's SHWAYMEDIA.com, for more info, updates, and a new show every week. And now, back to the show.
And we're back.
Yes.
So, final thoughts on Shiki really quick before we wrap that up. I know you mentioned sort of like this sort of slasher aesthetic, which I totally agree and I love.
Yeah, there was some of the death scenes that just seemed a little too, I don't want to say rapey, so I'll say sexual, like Chizuru's, the way she was writhing just sort of felt reminiscent of sexual assault, and the way they were holding her down, that just made me uncomfortable. But yeah, and also in some of the way they were dressed, it's like women in sexy clothing, that kind of thing. Also, I think Megami wins the award for most barbaric death. She didn't get a stake through the heart. She got her head crushed by a tractor.
Oh yeah, it's the same tractor you see in the beginning.
Yeah. And what also resonated with me was she called the humans strange to their faces, which it wasn't about for them killing her, but it was just about like the town culture that she hated, and as a result, she was the only Shiki whose humanity was questioned. Like one of the guys like in the tractor posse was saying, "Wait, are we sure she's a Shiki? I mean, like the way she's acting." And then like was like, "No, I was at her funeral. She's a monster." And that also helped raise the question again of who are the real monsters. And the village was cleansed in fire, which I just thought was biblically fitting.
I still think it's kind of funny how like Natsuno really hated her, but in some ways they were both really similar.
Yeah. I agree
like
with
they
that.
both come from the city. They both wanted to get the fuck out of there. They're both like pretty self-serving people to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, my overall feelings about the show, despite its like painfully slow start, and mildly like reprehensible characters, this is still like one of my favorite anime. I think it's probably one of the scariest, just in terms of like the themes that it explores.
Definitely.
And just how much of a spiral it goes down. And the music. Okay, the first opening is banging.
Oh yeah, that is Kuchisuke by Bucktick is the first opening. And honestly, what I really liked how what it invokes, like a sort of forced enthusiasm, like is the kind of vibe I got from it. Like, which I sort of could relate to with Megami, because she had to act like she was happy when she was really miserable, and the instrumentals on it are solid. Like, totally solid.
Yeah, for sure. And also, like, I think the visuals on that opening are definitely my absolute favorite. They're great.
Really, my favorite visuals from the openings was the blood you see on in the second OP as it flows. I love that the contrast of the red against the gray. It really popped and was really pretty. The second OP is Calendula Requiem by Canon X Canon.
That one was okay. I like the visuals a lot. I just wasn't really down with the song.
Yeah, it was the visuals for me more than the song, but the song for the first one, definitely.
And then also, like, a lot of, like, the insert tracks that they have for this show are fantastic. Like, they really help sort of emphasize how spooky this show is.
Definitely.
There's some really creepy sounds in there.
Yeah. And the actors make some creepy sounds, too.
Well, obviously. But there's, like, just these weird little, like, I don't even know how to describe them, but it's, like, these really... Okay, like, if you're wondering if, like, water droplets sounded scary, watch Shiki.
Yeah, it can make anything sound completely just spine-chilling.
And which brings me to our next show, which is, oh my god, so scary. Holy crap. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so this is Ghost Stories in High School. This is one of my favorite anime, and it's mainly because of the dub.
The dub is it makes the anime.
Is whack! It's so good. It's so good. So actually it's referred to as the little dub that could. So here's the crazy story behind this show. So Ghost Stories was a 20 episode anime created back in like 2000, I think, from Studio Pierrot. hilariously enough, that director, the director of Ghost Stories, also directed Yu Yu Hakusho and then Bleach later on. So that's interesting. Actually, the animation for this show is really, really good. It's just the story is complete shit.
If you watch
so
the original.
So it's based on the novels by Toru Tsunemitsu, and like the basic premise is like, basically like a group of kids, wander into an old schoolhouse that happens to be haunted. Then this cat gets possessed by one of the demons, which leads to them investigating like a series of hauntings throughout their town. Cue Scooby-Doo theme roll.
Yeah.
So the original story is complete shit. It's really trite. It's really boring. It's really cliche. It did not sell very well, and it's kind of weird because it's like they kind of tried to turn it into like a children's show.
It was originally geared
towards
it was originally geared for like children, like an after school kind of like
but they
fun
put
show.
They put it in a more like later time slot where you'd normally see like more adult oriented anime or like anime aimed at like teenagers and adults. And also I think some of the concepts were still just a little bit too dark for young children.
There was a part where like the dad almost died or something, right?
Yeah, we'll get to that. I mean, not that we really need spoilers for the show, but anyway. So needless to say, it did not perform well. It really sucked.
The company took a huge loss on it, in other words.
And so they approached many companies, actually, and initially they went to, every company you can think of, like Bondi, Jenny on USA, even Central Park Media wouldn't take it, which ought to
and
tell
they'll
you
take
something.
anything, or used to take anything.
They took, yeah. So that would tell you something. And they lowered the price, still nobody would take it. They lowered it again. They made it practically almost free. And then I think they approached ADV I think maybe 3 or 4 times, and then finally they were just like, okay, look, you can do whatever you want with this show. And then that's really all Stephen Foster needed to hear, and he just kind of went, oh, really?
And they were like, are you sure? Do you realize what you're saying that when you say that? Because we will do whatever we want.
Well, now, however, there were some very strict rules. The rules were they had to keep the original characters' names, with the exception of Leo, because that's just an LR thing. In the Japanese, his name is Rio, but clearly it's meant to be Leo. Like I said, just kind of an LR thing. So they had to keep the characters' names the same.
They had to keep the
and then
spine
also,
of the story intact. They couldn't just change it like it's a show about kids hunting ghosts. They couldn't just say, no, they're ice cream men now, and they try to sell ice cream to ghosts and fail. No. But they had to keep that.
Well, duh, no shit. Basically, they had to keep intact the ways in which the ghosts were exorcised to an extent, because these are actually based on real ghost legends. These are basically folklore that has been passed down for thousands of years. These are real Chinese and Japanese ghosts, and they kind of need to keep those intact. So they couldn't change the names of the ghosts, and they couldn't really edit too much of the footage down or change the initial basic plot. But anything else was completely fair game.
In other words, the writing was fair game.
So, for example, if they had to exorcise a demon and then chant, by saying, Katabe, Katabe, go away, Katabe, Katabe, you can't stay. They could change it to Katabe, Katabe, kick the bucket, Katabe, Katabe, you can suck it.
Or they had to exorcise the snow beast demon once, and they were like, We want the snow, but not the snow that is yellow. We want the snow, but not the snow that is yellow.
And then one of my favorite things was okay, so that there are jokes just coming at you like left and right. I don't think you're meant to get every joke. And there's some really obscure jokes. Like, okay, there is a joke in there that dates, that's like a reference to a song that was sung by like drag queens like a long time ago. I think it's called I've been to paradise, but I've never been to me. And they take the basic lyrics to that song and use it in one of like the incantations. And I think Greg Ayres' character says those lines, and it's pretty great. And when they were recording it at first, like he was like, Steven, like no one's gonna understand this joke, and he was like, someone will get this joke. Someone will get this joke.
Oh yeah, but it was like something, but rage along the coast. I may have never been to me, but I have been a ghost. I think I watched that. I watched it recently, so yeah.
Something like that. I should know. I literally just watched that episode. Then my other favorite line from that episode is so the little character Leo is dressed up like this like Phantom of the Opera type thing, and he's talking about how he like made his own costume, and then I think one of Monica's lines was like, "Oh my, what a lovely seamstress. I hope he isn't a homosexual."
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so some more background information. They did sort of change the characters' like personalities to an extent. Like, for example, in the original Japanese, this character Momoka, who is voiced by Monica in the dub, in the original Japanese, she's meant to be an esper, so like basically like a psychic medium. And in the dub, they basically turned her into a born-again Christian, with which I guess Monica ended up like reading a ton of Bible verses so she could prepare for this role. So she went like
she read a ton, but she also knew a ton just from going to church as a kid.
Yeah, like, and some of her one-liners are absolutely fantastic. I think probably the most famous one that everyone quotes is the, do you accept Jesus as your Lord personal savior?
Yeah.
To which the little Jewish kid responds, but I'm Jewish.
Yeah. Greg Ayres will always like talk about that nonstop at cons because he loved Leo so much.
Oh yeah. And so the thing is like, so they like turned him into like a Jewish kid. Haji is like a pervert. My favorite thing actually, one of my favorite things, but so the little brother Keiichiro is voiced by Christine Otten. If you don't know who that is, so she normally plays these like mature, like kind of sultry, like husky voice, like older female characters, like Esdeath and Akami Got Killed. She's also the voice of Lady Death. She's also Izumi Curtis from Full Metal Alchemist. And instead, like, here she is playing this bratty little kid to the point, where like she'll have like these sort of like one-off, like ridiculous like one-liners, like, what's a lesbian? But then at one point they literally just took away all of his dialogue and replaced it with just like complete nonsense, like just her going she kills me.
Yeah,
like,
that
oh my god. And then the other person that pretty much walks away with the entire show, in my opinion, is Rob Mungle as the demon-possessed cat.
Yeah, he just like got to go to
everything.
town on that.
It's just comedy gold. Like I think there's one part where he's like, "You are the ugliest bunch of kids I've ever seen." Hoo-wee.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great.
The show, when it first came out,
Oh yeah, so they premiered this I think think Monica and Greg were at Otakon
Like
when they
08, 06, roughly.
somewhere around then. So they quote unquote like premiered this like dub some like at like Otakon, and they got like people were not happy because at the time like no one had really ever done this before, like purposefully like dubbed a show like with just nothing but like jokes and like really like raunchy ridiculous humor.
And no one's ever really done it since, unless you count
like
Pop Team Epic, but that's something else.
Even Pop Team Epic was still pretty faithful to the Japanese.
True.
Like it wasn't they were. The thing with Pop Team Epic though is like it wasn't just them like inserting whatever that they wanted to into the lines. It was more just like them kind of going to town with like their vocal range and stuff.
True.
I mean, it's still funny, but the thing with Pop Team Epic is like you kind of just let the visuals kind of speak for themselves. But anyway, so they premiered this. They premiered this like gag dub, so to speak, of Ghost Stories at like Otakon. Like people were not feeling it. Like they practically got booed off the stage.
ADV was getting bomb threats like almost
it was
daily
ridiculous.
Because of how much people hated this.
And like you always have like the keyboard warriors that are like, how dare you insult such a great anime as Ghost Stories, and like some actors too just have like these egos that like, how dare you boo me, you insignificant mortals. Monica and Greg just laugh their asses off. They're like, oh my god, we're getting booed, this is awesome. And they're like waving to people as they leave, like having Gatorade bottles, like thrown at them and stuff. Like it was great. They loved it.
Yeah.
I think several years later, I forget which convention it is. I wish I knew, but like it's kind of become this sort of like cult classic. Pretty much any dub fan is pretty much aware of this show at this point. It's you can find the entire thing on Crunchyroll.
Is it dubbed on Crunchyroll?
Absolutely. They have both the original sub and the dub. So what happened was ADV had this title for a hot minute, but then their initial plan, like I think Steven and Greg had talked about this for a little bit, but they wanted to go back and dub maybe just like the first 5 episodes, like they wanted to go and like redub it with like newer, more like relevant jokes. Because there's a lot of pop culture references, but
no one remembers who Christian Slater is anymore.
Yeah, like the landscape changes. For example, this was in like smack dab in the middle of like the Bush era, so all those guys get it good and proper. But like that this was like Lindsay Lohan was still sober.
Yeah, she still had a career.
This was before, Ted Cruz or Trump or any of that stuff. Like, so...
Like, the most political... Like, the political joke they made was seeing William Rehnquist on the river Sanzu. Like, I remember reading about him when he died, and that like, no one's gonna, laugh at a William Rehnquist joke today.
Or even, like... Greg actually talks about this a lot too, because they made his character into a little Jewish kid. Well, this is before that infamous Mel Gibson rant.
Yes.
So from now on, like if you get him to autograph the DVD, he'll literally write, "Screw Mel Gibson, Jews rock. Love you."
I have such a DVD with that on it. He signed it at a con
I do
a year
as
or two
well.
back.
Just like bring him a copy. He'll like write that on there. It's great. So what happened was the license expired. I think ADV tried to get it back, but then obviously after some time ADV fell, and they are no longer a company. Now they're Sentai Filmworks.
And now Discotech
But-
owns the license.
Yeah, luckily,
wanna buy
Discotech, which is a company that's known for license rescues, now has obtained the license, and now you can buy the whole ridiculous show on DVD for pretty reasonable price. I got mine at a convention, I think for like $25.
Yeah, I got mine there
It's
too
also on
at
Crunchyroll.
about $20-25. And actually, let me tell you the story about how I first learned about
Oh
ghost
yeah, so
stories.
everyone has their like ghost story or like their Guardsie's Wing story. So these are always fun to tell.
All right, so for me, it was February of 2015. I was at a I was in Indiana at Anime Crossroads, and I was chatting with Josh Greeley after opening ceremonies. And for those of you who don't know, Josh is the biggest pro ghost stories advocate who wasn't in the show that I've ever met. He will talk about it constantly if even just nudged. Anyway, I'm chatting with him after opening ceremonies, and Greg Ayers, who's also a guest there, comes up. It's like, says, hey, what's up? Like, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, hey, I'm heading to the dealer's room. You guys want to come with? Like, sure. And we're just browsing the dealer's room, and we get to an anime vendor, and he's like, looks at it, just his eyes just bug out, like, dude, pulls it out from the display and says, and he and Josh just like start nerding out about this. And I'm like, it's like a parody. It's blah, 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 blah. It's this and that. It's everything we talked about, really. And then, like, I have money. I should buy this. So I bought it, and it actually sort of just became a talking point theme sort of at his and Josh's panels that weekend. Like, someone had found like a compilation clip of just a bunch of the best jokes on YouTube, and just put that up on the projector before the panels, and every time the audience was no exaggeration, just rolling on the floor, couldn't breathe. They were laughing so hard, myself included. And so then I got home after the convention and binged the whole thing, and I'm amazed I'm still alive and didn't die from oxygen deprivation. I was laughing so hard. And I just told Greg, dude, this is the greatest show anyone has ever recommended to me. Thank you.
So my story is a little similar. I first heard about it at a convention. Little convention called Anime Detour. You can actually find footage of that panel on YouTube. I was at that panel. This is years ago. By years ago, I mean like 4 years ago. I think this is like 2013, 2014, something like that. It was a long ass time ago. Anyway, I was at a panel and someone brought it up. And of course, anytime you bring up like Matt just said, anytime you bring up ghost stories around Greg Ayers, he's just like, oh hell yeah. And we'll just talk about it for as long as possible. Because both he and Chris Patton are like really proud of that show. They had way too much fun. I think all of the principal cast just had way too much fun with it. I mean, how could you not? Like, given that much creative license just to be as ridiculous as possible. And have it be like an official dub. Like, that just does not happen very often, if ever. So I discovered it at a convention, and I'm trying to remember. Okay, yeah, so it was at a convention, so someone mentioned it, and then kind of did something similar. Like, I went and got it at the dealer's hall. I got one of the last copies too at that particular vendor, and then got him to sign it and everything. And then yeah, like that kind of does something similar where like they would like play different clips of it at panels and stuff. And then I also got to see it again a second time at an Alamo Draft House for Anime at the Alamo, and that was
nice.
a ton of fun.
Nice.
Like it was just really cool, like having the entire theater just like erupt with laughter, and like also this is the Draft House, so we're we could partake in like alcoholic beverages, and that just made it even better.
Oh yeah, this is a great show to watch while drunk because it just gets better. Yeah, I don't remember if it was the last copy or not, but it was definitely like one of the few things that I ever like just bought instantly after hearing about it. Like, oh my god, I need this show.
Yeah, it's fabulous. Yeah, I like so many great one-liners from that. Some of them I won't repeat because they are really inappropriate, and I don't know if I want to go that far on this show yet.
Really,
we gotta kind of get to know each other better a little bit, before we have that kind of relationship.
Yes, audience, talk to us. We want to learn about you. Really, one of my favorite things they did was it was for episode 13. Vic Mignogna
he uses a pseudonym.
He plays basically the ghost of Vincent van Gogh, and he heard.
Was it Van Gogh or was it Da Vinci?
I thought it was one of the he plays a dead painter. That's what you need to know for this.
Famous artist guy, whatever.
And he was uneasy about like the idea of just going ham on like a dub. Like he didn't want to like he knew they had permission, but at the same time he felt like it would be like a little disrespectful. So he's like, I'll do it, but I want a pseudonym. They're like, okay, fine. Just, do you have one? No, just pick one. And Stephen Foster was like, big mistake. So the pseudonym they chose for him was Obi Frosttips.
Yeah. Okay, so
that's the second best pseudonym, and that's the second best pseudonym in the credits. The other, I forget, I couldn't quite figure out who it was, but someone went under the name Skitchy Fish Market.
Yeah.
Or in Japanese, Tsukiji Fish Market, the largest fresh fish market in the country.
Yeah, it's like world famous. If you ever go to Japan, go to the Tsukiji Fish Market. It's amazing. You can get some of like the freshest seafood in the entire world. But anyway, it's where like some of the most expensive cuts of sushi come from too. Anyway, oh man, what else? Okay, actually, really quick thing about pseudonyms though. In this case, as the years have gone by, Vic Mignogna has let it be known to the public that was indeed him. He's told that story multiple times, so he's okay with it. But just as a general rule, if you do notice that an actor has used a pseudonym, please do not out them publicly.
Don't out them publicly, and don't ask them to sign whatever it is. Like, okay, grade A example, at least half the cast of Dancing the Vampire Bund used a pseudonym. Yeah, and I have only ever heard one person who used a pseudonym openly talk about it.
Yeah. Until obviously many years later. When I think most of the cast by now is like, okay, yeah, I did that show.
Yeah, back when it was okay to, after some time has passed, and
yeah. So the TLDR version of that show is it's a mid-2000s show by Studio Shaft, directed by Aki Kishimbo. So no surprises there. But yeah, it's basically about this, like 900-year-old vampire who happens to possess take the form of like a 12-year-old girl voiced by Monica Rial.
Yeah.
Who's probably like the only person who didn't use a pseudonym.
You could count on on maybe one hand the number of people who did not use a pseudonym, because apparently the rumor going around at the time was that
They weren't
if you
really
used
sure.
was that if you used it was that if you like did this show, you'd end up on some kind of pedophile watch list, and no one wanted to take that risk for
Okay, so
obvious
at
reasons.
the time, very few like lolicon shows had really made it into this much of like the mainstream sphere. And so I think when Funimation got this show, I think they had a ton of legal work to do probably
Oh
to
yeah.
like really make sure that the show is in fact okay.
Yeah.
Because it was like if we're gonna dub this thing, like we need to cover our asses. So pretty much the entire cast, save for like 3 people, including the director, went entirely by pseudonyms. Some of them are pretty hilarious.
Yeah. Like,
And I mean, again, like now most of the cast and the director are comfortable talking about it. Although the director will sort of like mutter it under their breath, like that's the or
Yeah.
or like kind of like cough when he's saying
Yeah.
it.
even the actors who didn't use pseudonyms are just like, you can tell they aren't really keen on talking about it. So yeah, don't out people with pseudonyms. It's just not cool at all.
Yeah. So yeah, back to my original point. Yeah, like they use them for a reason. And you know, sometimes it's maybe they're in material that they might not want their name associated with for like, I don't know, moral reasons or something, or maybe they find the subject matter really controversial or what have you.
A modern
Sometimes
example
It's
modern
for, like,
example
union reasons.
is A Sister Is All You Need. That was dubbed about a year or two ago. And I met Jeremy Inman at a con. He was directing it while it was going on, and he was saying that he was going back and he had a very good relationship with Funny's legal department as a result of that show, because it was a constant back and forth of, am I allowed to say this? Am I allowed to use this? This is what that means. Can I translate it like this? Blah, blah, blah. And he had to constantly check to make sure that none of the things they say would get the cops called on them, which I completely understand. But Stan, I don't think remember anyone using a pseudonym for that one, but
No, I don't think so.
Basically the one place now that you see pseudonyms a lot are ecchi shows.
Yeah.
Like really ecchi shows, like Valkyrie
Or-
Drive Mermaid ecchi.
Or like straight up hentai. Although like to an extent, and also sometimes you might have an actor use a pseudonym just for like union reasons, especially if the actors are out in Los Angeles. Sometimes per their union contract, they may not be able to work on certain projects, you know, that aren't within like, you know, the span, like basically like they may not be able to work non-union projects. And so in order to sort of have this sort of loophole around that, they use a different name. So then they can say like, technically they weren't in that. It was blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, Lauren Landa, I know. She said that she was okay with this when I met her a little while back in March. She used a pseudonym in High School DxD, which it escapes me right now. Anyway, she used one in DxD, and so I was thinking, oh, I would like her to have her sign that, but pseudonym, can't. This was before season 4 came out.
Yeah.
So then I get to her table at autographs, and she has a Zenobia print, the character she voiced, as under a different name. And so I asked her about that, and she said that was my first ecchi show, so I wanted to be careful, and that's just how they credited me for the first 3 seasons. But since it's okay, since I'm fine now with it, I just went back to it, and which is perfectly okay. It's just you have to understand why they have to cover themselves. And yeah, I have a Zenobia print signed by Lauren Landa that she sold me. So it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, like I can totally understand that. And then also sometimes it's just kind of fun to come up with like a really goofy name.
Yeah.
Again, obviously like when, like within reason, of course, if it's like a serious show, you probably want to be a little bit more serious about it, but anyway.
You can find me in some anime as Jack Mehoff.
I think my favorite was one that Greg Ayres came up with a long time ago, called Kumal Over Me.
I don't remember hearing about that one, but I love it.
I don't remember. Like, I can't remember the full story. It was this show that he did a long time ago that turned out to be a hentai.
Lovely.
He wasn't in any of those scenes. He just voiced the character, like the main character, as like a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's still career guilt by association.
Yeah, like it. Nothing weird happens in any of the scenes that he's in, and he actually didn't know, because a lot of times when you're dubbing anime, like you just kind of go in almost cold, like you really don't have any idea like what you're actually doing. You just kind of see the scenes that your character is in, and you just voice those lines accordingly. You don't really actually see the entire show.
Right.
So this is pretty common. And then when he realized what it was, he was like, oh man, maybe I should come up with like a pseudonym. And he and Monica kind of talked about it for a bit, and they were like, yeah, but like everyone knows it's us. Like, and does anyone like do we really care?
Mm-hmm.
So I think after a while they were just like, fuck it.
That's one of the reasons Monica was one of the few actors in Vampire Bund who didn't use a pseudonym, and she said that everyone can like the instant I open my mouth, it's me, so why bother?
And this is kind of before, Michiko and Hachin, and like later in her career when she started kind of experimenting with these like kind of more lower register characters. And so forth. I think the only time she really ever used a pseudonym is when she did some of the scripts for Oron, just in case like she was worried that if people didn't like it. Because that show had a really like hardcore fan following, so I think initially she was a little bit concerned about that, but obviously the show did really, really well, and she ended up playing Renge, so like everything worked out in the end. Anyway, we are almost out of time. I think we're coming up just on the end, so I think final thoughts. Let's see. Ghost Stories, obviously very too enthusiastic thumbs up for me. It's absolutely hilarious. That being said, the humor is pretty much like all bets are off. It is not politically correct whatsoever. So if that might make you uncomfortable, or if that offends you in any way, like by all means, like you don't have to watch it. If you're okay with it, then I've go for it, because it's absolutely hilarious. But
if you want a good laugh and don't care about being offended, watch Ghost Stories.
Yeah. But if you would find that problematic, I'd totally understand. And as with Shiki as well, this is one of my favorite shows. I've been wanting to talk about it for a while now. There are a couple of other spooky shows that we might get to eventually. It's a very long list. It's pretty much like my two main favorite genres of anime are probably like probably like shoujo romance, and then just like psychological horror.
I like comedy and action shows mainly. I also occasionally venture into darker, like get really hooked on a darker one that I'm sure we'll cover, all of which I'm sure we'll cover eventually. But Ghost Stories is too just like laughing so hard I can't breathe. Thumbs up from me. It is just nothing but hilarity. It is really like one of the ultimate anime labors of love, because you could tell everyone was just having a blast recording this, and most of it was improv, and they all got credited as writers. So
yes,
they are just, you can tell how much love they put into that. And then Shiki gets another 2 very traumatized thumbs up from me, because it's a masterpiece at exploring the human condition, and just beautiful and just slow, but ultimately the ultimate execution is just marvelous. Like, it makes you stop and think and just hug a loved one. It is just that dark.
I would say the pacing does kind of almost come to a crashing halt in some instances, but it's definitely worth it if you are patient enough. It's a excellent psychological horror, and also like visual horror anime as well. Superb visuals, fantastic fashion choices on behalf of the characters, and really, really great soundtrack as well. Highly recommend. I would say, although, stream it initially, see if you can kind of get a feel for it. And if you do stick with it, definitely be sure to watch the 2 extra episodes, which I think are now in actual chronological order.
You can only stream it on
unfortunately, for streaming wise, since the license has unfortunately expired from Funimation, curse you, Aniplex. You can find it on Crunchyroll in sub.
And it is still available for the DVD with the dub is still available for purchase. I know Right Stuff has it. I think Funny still might. I don't know about Crunchyroll, but it is still available for first-hand purchase.
Yeah, and it's pretty and getting pretty cheap too. So, or it was when I bought it. So
it's under $20 last I checked.
Yeah, but get it quick, because that can very well change, especially if it's going back to Aniplex.
Unless you want to wait 3 years and pay $800 for it.
Yeah, or something along those lines. It was on Hulu and on Netflix for a hot minute. I don't know if they're still there. I have not checked. But if they are, great. If not, it's definitely still on Crunchyroll. And also, if you wanted to get the Blu-rays, they should still be available. I got mine off of Right Stuff for relatively cheap. So if you are at all interested, get them while they're hot, because that could not last.
Yeah, I forget where I got mine, but I think it was during a sale, and it was pretty dirt cheap.
And as for Ghost Stories, it's very much still available. And you can find the entire dub on Crunchyroll right now, in all of its inappropriate glory.
Do yourself a favor and make yourself laugh by watching that.
Yes. Anyway, so I think that wraps it up, or that just about wraps it up. As usual, you can follow the show. Please follow the show on our Twitter page @Dubterfuge, as well as on our Facebook page, and also please subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you do listen to us on iTunes, please leave us
we love feedback.
Yes, leave comments, reviews. That really helps us out a lot. That helps out our producer a lot. That lets them know that we should keep doing this. It also lets our sponsors know that we are a worthy investment.
And we like being a worthy investment. It means we get to keep doing this.
Yes, we do. You can find me on Twitter and pretty much all the social media at Shterra. That's SHTERRA on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, like the whole 9 yards.
That's 3 R's. I think you only said 2.
SHTRRA.
SHTERRA. You cannot spell your own name tonight, can you?
You know, I have
Not to be that guy.
TLDR. I'm recovering from gum surgery that I had earlier this month. I think like a few weeks ago, and I also actually had to repair some stitches pretty recently too. So give me a break.
And you can find me on Twitter at Matthew H. Voss and my unused Instagram at Vomahanu.
And as always, feel free to hit us up on other social medias, especially on Twitter. That's where most of our updates are gonna come from. And we will see you all next episode.
Thanks for coming in.
And that's our show. New episodes drop every 2 weeks on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Central Time on YouTube. The show is available for download on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Podcast Addict, and Stitcher. Follow us on Twitter at Dubterfuge for more updates. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Now this is podcasting.